Story time on how I found out my dad was molesting my 4-year-old daughter. I'm not doing these for attention, for clout, for none of that. If I can tell my story and help somebody else, that's what I'm gonna do. First thing I want to say is pay attention to your kids. Your girls, your boys, pay attention. It was the smallest thing that brought everything to light. Something that I could have absolutely overlooked, and I did not because I pay attention to my child. I look at everything. I pay attention to everything when it comes to her. I be paranoid, and it comes from my own childhood trauma. But anyways, so my dad lived about 2 hours from us. I had just finished school and I was about to start my extern. My husband worked during the day, and I needed somebody to watch my daughter while I did my extern because she wasn't in school at the time. So my husband drove 2 hours, picked my dad up, brought my dad back to our house. So I started my extern. Everything was going good. Mind y'all, I ain't never told nobody this, but I was already paranoid. Like, it was something. I was paranoid that whole week. It was like little small stuff that was being done that kind of had me uneasy. But okay, so the first thing was one day my husband was about to drop me off at my extern. It was like 8 in the morning. My daughter was in our room because my dad was in her room. So my baby was in the bed asleep. My husband and I, we were leaving the house, and we were outside, I want to say maybe 30 to 45 seconds, because my husband, when we got in the car, he realized that he left something. And he got up to go in the house, and when he got to our bedroom door, my dad was at the door. Mind you, my baby is in there sleep. It's like 8 in the morning. Before we left out the house, we told him that she was sleeping. That was weird to me, but then again, you couldn't tell him nothing about his grandchild. He loved his grandchild. I was thinking, like maybe she was whining or something and he went to check on her, but my husband was like, she's asleep. Okay. So another time, it was like my second or third day of my extern. My baby was playing in there with him. And she came out and she was just standing in the living room. And I could see his shadow in the hallway, like with his hand, he was like beckoning her to come back to where he was. But he would never say it out loud, which was weird because if just call her name. But it was like he was silently beckoning her, like he didn't want us to hear or see that he was calling her in the back where he was. Okay. After that, I don't know. I think it was, I wasn't even a week into my ex time when we found this out. Like, okay, he was doing little weird stuff, just weird stuff. And mind y'all, like I said, I lived with my dad my whole life. He got a bunch of nieces, a bunch of granddaughters. Everybody loved him, man. Ain't nobody ever said nothing out the way about him. No rumors. He ain't never did nothing to nobody. Like, he was just a host of fun. Everybody loved him.
This is why when women talk about their kids not being safe around men, you should not respond with, not every man is like that. I think women have a right to be afraid of scenarios like this because can you imagine your baby girl is not even safe around her grandfather? And that man has other grandkids, nieces, and all of that. And maybe he has been doing that to some of them too. Maybe this is not his first time. And if that baby girl is running away from him and he's silently beckoning her to come, that child was probably scared. And so many women also have been through this. So many women have been the one that their family members, their fathers, their brothers, their uncles, their cousins have done unspeakable things to them. Never got therapy for it, never told anybody. And so some women will walk around with that trauma, and it's so hard to form connections with people. I'm not even talking about relationships. I'm talking about even trusting anybody just because of what you have been through. So when women talk about, men are not safe, it's not safe for men to be around kids. I mean, look at that situation with the trophy wife. I mean, so many people are saying that she missed the red flags and she ignored the red flags. But regardless of what she did and didn't do, that does not excuse a grown man, the father of those children, from doing what he did. So when women say men are dangerous and kids aren't safe around men, keep silent. Because these are the stories that you're not hearing. And there are so many other stories. There is a large percentage of women who either things have been done to them or they know someone in real life that things were done to them. So we're not just making this up when we're paranoid about men and kids and safety. Yeah, and like things like this just really hurts me and it angers me. And that's probably why I did not talk about that trophy wife situation. But then I saw this and it's like what is the world even coming to?
Like, that's why I'm shocked and hurt, like, to this day. Like, it still bothers me every day. But anyway, so one day, my baby, she came in here, like, she was still, like, at night, she was, at the time, she was still, like, with the bed. So she had on a pull-up because it was nighttime and she was getting ready to go to bed. So she lay out on the couch and she put her hand in her pull-up. So red flag, flag on the play. I don't play it. Why your hands in your pull-up? But of course, I was like, babe, why you got your hand right there? Like, what's wrong? Where you get that from? Somebody did that to you? I'm asking questions. She was like, yes. So I already know. When you questioning a child, you do not say a name. Like, you don't say nobody's name because, that child can just go with whatever you're saying. So I'm just like, somebody did that to you? I didn't say no name. Mind you, the only men in our house is my husband and my dad. And it could have been a woman. I got a bunch of cousins, whatever. It could have been a woman. So my husband, my dad, and sometimes my brother come around. But yeah, at the time it was just us three in the house. So I'm like, somebody did that to you? And she like, yeah. So I don't want to say her name. So I'm like, okay, baby, who did that? She was like, Papa. That's what she called my dad. I'm like, Papa, I'm trying to get some clarity. Papa changed you. Papa, what? Wiped you? Took you a bath? I can't say exactly what it was that she did. She showed me what he did. And she also said something that he did. And my heart just dropped. Like, dropped. I was crying so bad. I told my husband and my dad got into an altercation. And yeah, I called my auntie. My auntie lived down the street from me and I told her. And she was like, oh, I just don't believe he did that. I don't believe, mind you, this my auntie on my mama's side. She was like, I don't believe he did that. Wait, I gotta do a part two.
If if your child calls a name of someone and says, that person did this thing to me, and you tell your family members that this child said that this person did this thing to me, and called their name and showed you what they did, and that family member does not believe you, and that this is so triggering for me. Those are the family members that you also need to watch, because those are sometimes the family members that know exactly what's going on, but they're the ones that are also telling the kids not to say anything, if you get what I mean. Before we move on to part two, I just want to read some of the comments. Rebecca said, I stood up in court against my own dad for what he did to mine. He went to jail. Some things you cannot forgive. Someone else says, I found out when my daughter was 13 years, she opened up and told me what happened to her when she was younger. He is now in prison. This is not a one-off situation. Things like this are happening in real life. Little girls and little boys are being violated by older men, older women who should be protecting them. Check on your kids. Create a safe space for your kids to be able to come to you and say these things to you. And if they're not able to talk as yet, communicate with that child. Tell that child places that are off limits, that nobody should be touching them. Because this is real life. Someone else says, this is very important. As parents, be very observant of your child's behavior. Thank you for this. My biggest fear and heartbreak. Let's move on to part two.
Part two on how I found out my dad was saying my 4-year-old. And I'm emotional because I done recorded this part two like twice and it keep deleting, and I'm wondering if that's a sign like to just stop and let it go, but no. Okay, like I said, I called my auntie. My auntie was a police at the time in the town that we lived in. So, and
That
she
makes
stayed
it
right down the
worse.
street. So naturally, I'm gonna call my auntie. I called my auntie. She came over, and I don't know if it was because I had just broke down crying, or because my husband and my dad had just had a argument and was yelling. But when my auntie started asking my baby questions, she would not answer the questions. And my auntie literally told me right there in my face, like, okay, I don't believe this. And it's, my auntie might see this. Auntie, no hard feelings, but yeah, that hurt me. Anyways, so I'm getting emotional, y'all. Hold up. Okay, so my auntie said she didn't believe it and told me to take my baby to the hospital, which I was gonna do anyway. I ain't see anything, but I still wanted to take her to get checked up. So we took her to the hospital. When the doctor came in, she told us off jump, like, usually you don't find no type of physical evidence with cases like that. But my baby ended up telling the doctor the same thing that she told us. And they called, okay, we went to the hospital in Memphis because it's the closest hospital to the children's hospital in Memphis. It's the closest children's hospital near us, even though we stay in Mississippi. So they end up calling the police from Mississippi because that's where we live. to the hospital in Memphis. And the police that call, that's the station that my auntie work in. So they came, took our statements or whatever, and the doctor had just told us that she saw something, and it could have came from constipation, like some strain with constipation, or it could have came from something else. And they could have taken her somewhere else and did an invasive testing, but it wasn't recommended. So I told my auntie that, and like I said, the woman wasn't sure where it came from, and I didn't want to do the invasive testing. So of course that's not going in nobody's paperwork or whatever. So my auntie was getting access to the files or whatever. So she called, like, talking about she didn't see anything about what I had just said. Of course you don't see it. We don't even know if that's where it came from. That upset me so bad because you don't believe her, and now you looking at files talking about what you don't see. So anyways, they made it to where my auntie couldn't even access those files anymore because I was so upset. And nobody, hardly nobody. Well, at first everybody was like, "Oh, that's so sad," and he wrong for that. But a year later, everybody his best friend, y'all. Everybody his best friend. Everybody always talk to him, and he miss y'all, and this, that, the third, y'all. My family, my mama people. Oh, you don't think she got that off YouTube? What's YouTube? Yeah, that is so hurtful. For people to doubt your child, that's hurtful. But I understand a little bit because of his character. Like I said, we all grew up together. My cousins, I got plenty of girl cousins. He got plenty of granddaughters, nieces. He never did this to none of us. None of us, y'all. He never made us feel uncomfortable in no type of way. My mom died when I was 14 years old. I lived with my dad my whole life. He got full custody of me. My dad never made me feel uncomfortable. He never did nothing to me. Never said nothing to me out the way. But the way my daughter said what she said, the way she demonstrated what he did to her, I would be a fool to deny my child. I would be a fool to just sweep that under the rug and be like, "Oh, she 4 years old. She don't know what she's talking about. That came off YouTube." Yeah, these folks set up an interrogation for my baby 2 weeks after this incident happened. And I thought, it's 2 weeks later. My baby ain't gonna remember that. Y'all, when there's some truth to what your child is saying, one thing about it, when you lie or when you being untruthful, you gotta, it's hard to remember. But 2 weeks later, my 4-year-old went into the interrogation room with the police, the CPS worker, and the child therapist and repeated the same thing. She even told them stuff that she didn't even tell us because she was afraid to tell us. 45-minute long interrogation 2 weeks later. She did what needed to be done. That's the exact thing that the CPS worker said to me when they came out of their room. She was like, she did a good job. She said what needed to be said. They sent that tape over to a grand jury or something like that. Y'all, that was a year ago. I don't know what's going on. So I've been messed up. I can't lie. My dad was literally all I had. All I had. My best friend, literally. So the fact that he did this to us, and I gotta sit up here a whole year later, and my baby come to me and she say she miss her papa. My baby wants to see him. She wants to go to his house. She want to know why he didn't just apologize. She said, Mama, why didn't we just let him apologize? Why didn't we do that in the first place? Why he couldn't apologize like a real friend do? I had to explain to her, it don't work like that, baby. What he did, that's not right. You can't just let somebody do that to you and forgive them. She don't understand. And I'm fighting with this every day because not only did this happen to my child, but I lost my best friend in the midst of that. Because if you know me, you know that my daddy was literally my best friend. I'm talking about on the phone 4 and 5 times a day. Like, that's what kind of bond we had. And people want to know, like, why I be so angry at my family. Like, why wouldn't I be? I'm getting emotional. I gotta go.
Everything that happened has now broken that family. And it's gonna be really hard for her as the mom to move on, because every time she really sits and looks at her daughter and think about what happened, she's gonna be hurt all over again. And like she said, she was really close to her dad. Her dad raised her from a teen. Something like that is going to affect her for the rest of her life. I don't think this mom is ever gonna fully recover from losing her dad, having the image of her dad change, and also think about what happened to her daughter and how her daughter is going to grow up and remember that. Because things like this, kids remember. And especially if you tell your parent that this thing happened to you and your parent didn't believe you, or they were dismissive, you're going to always remember that. So let's read some of the comments. The first one says, you got to tell her what he did is a crime and that's why it's unforgivable. It's horrible. Someone else says, I was a child sex crimes officer and you did everything right. Most predators have great personalities and that's why they're able to groom the kids. Great job listening to her. Someone else says, the fact that you were so close to your dad and you didn't hesitate to protect and believe her is an instant show you're an amazing mama. She'll appreciate you backing her up so much when she understands. Exactly. Believe the kid first and investigate. And if the kid lies, then you seriously reprimand that kid, because that's not something to lie about. But if you ignore and it's true, the trauma and everything that that child goes through is going to be on you as a parent, as a caretaker.
You out your rabbit ass mind. Nah, my husband didn't coach her. He ain't had time to coach her. And if my husband was doing anything to my baby, trust and believe I would have peeped that way before my dad even got there. Because I pay attention to my child. I would have peeped it. My baby said who did what to her, okay? And if she had said that it was my husband, he would have been gone too. Because don't nobody come before my child. Ain't that much love in the world. I never put nobody before my child. I would have never put my husband before my dad either. So what are you even talking about? You stupid if you think I'm going to sit up here and blame the man who raised me, my dad. And it's a possibility that it wasn't him. No. My daughter ain't crazy. She know who did what to her. Y'all just be saying anything. And you gonna talk about he never touched you or any of his nieces. I can only speak for myself, first of all. Nah, he ain't never touched me. He ain't never said nothing out the way. He ain't never did nothing out the way. And I never heard anything bad about him from his nieces, grandkids, whatever. But guess what? I can only speak for me, like I said. Some people don't have the courage to come forward. So he could have did something to somebody and they not say nothing. Everybody don't speak up, but I am, for me and my daughter. You say you unsure. Okay, go be unsure. Go sit right on over there with my older folks. I'm not unsure. I'm positive. I believe my baby. I believe everything she say.
People like this is really why most people don't come forth when things happen. Because that comment was basically saying that it could be that it was the husband that did it to her and he told her to say that it was the grandfather. When you try to justify and make excuses for something that was explicitly said, I think you're a part of the problem. The child knows the difference between daddy and grandpa. And the child said it was grandpa. A 4-year-old, even if that's what happened and that 4-year-old was coached, at some point a 4-year-old is going to slip up. I'm sorry. 4-year-old. I have a daughter. I have a 10-year-old. At 4, to carry on a lie and a lie like that and to be demonstrating and all of that, highly unlikely. That mom did a great job believing her daughter and protecting her daughter and cutting off that man. And that family did a horrible job. And like she said, she didn't touch her, but maybe the cousins, maybe all the other kids that man had access to, maybe they have a different experience and they won't say anything. And with an auntie who's a police who is saying, nah, I don't believe that. No wonder nobody else would come for it. Why would they? And he's the life of the party. He has a great personality. Everybody loves him. Nobody would believe. Those are the kind of people that do things like this. And that's why, again, if you have kids, pay attention to your kids. If you're taking care of a child, pay attention to that child and ensure that you make a safe space for that child to be able to tell you that they feel uncomfortable around a certain person. If you notice that when Uncle Bob comes over, your child is in the room and she doesn't want to come out, every time Uncle Bob comes over, she never wants to go visit Uncle Bob and his wife, think about it. Protect your kids. We gotta keep the kids from the trauma. Like everything else that's going on in this world, these babies don't need this added to everything else. Yeah, this has just been so triggering for me. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you in my next video.